Good morning. Well, I received a question yesterday from a student, a 6-2 manifestor, in fact. Interesting that there are a few of those in my life now, and that the week I met Human Design, I was introduced to it by a 6-2 manifestor who was partnered with another 6-2 manifestor. Well, she asked a brave question. She said, I've been trying to love myself for 5 years since I first heard of the concept. Why is self-compassion so hard? What a brave question. So the first thing that came to my memory then was the first time somebody even mentioned, I think, the phrase self-love or loving yourself to me. I was 21 years old. I had graduated from college and I was up in Alaska working in a kitchen at a wilderness lodge. And I was called into a little talk with like the supervisor woman. And I wasn't very happy. Something wasn't right with me. I gotta say, I could try to explain that now, but no reason. But in any case, I was a unhappy little 21-year-old. And at a point in the conversation, the woman said, at a certain point, I said, you just have to decide if you love yourself. And I was like, what? cry and leave. And no, I had her saying that, whatever she said exactly, I knew that I didn't, but the concept of it kind of scared me or something. It made me cry. And apparently I don't have issues with loving myself anymore. I am aware of that. It doesn't go away. Compassion for myself, yeah, that can go away. I mean, that somehow compassion seems more like regulatable by my mind or something. Certainly judgments haven't gone away. I'm more dumb. I know myself to be more stupid than I've ever allowed myself to know before. But that somehow maybe is related to the fact that there is this there's this underlying current of love for myself and compassion for the patheticness of myself that seems to be pretty steady now. And so I was trying to remember after that first thought, like, well, when did I become aware that I loved myself? And I can't say that I can pinpoint that exactly, although maybe I can. I do remember that I'm going to say, I had a lot of memories that shocking situations seemed to call it out of me. And I don't know if that's because my personality sun is in the gate of shock, line 6 of gate 51, or if that's a more universal experience. Maybe other people have that as well. But I've been through a lot of shocking events in my life, including being born. But, like, when I learned in this rather shocking, surprising way on my birthday that my then husband had an affair in a previous business trip, I was fucking shocked. But there was something that, like, through all this emotional rage and misunderstanding, because he had indicated that monogamy was the only way for him, That was definitely his sign of love for me, was his monogamy for me. So then I got to find out that rule changed. In any case, it was shocking. And but yet there was something that like drug me out of bed in the hotel room the next morning, and I took myself to a yoga class. And there was something in me that I knew I needed to give myself that Bikram yoga class in San Diego, California, to now I know a lot more about inter-aura mechanics and all those people in the room and all that sweat and whatever. But there was some kind of self-love in there. And there have been other shocking experiences where it seems to be that they're related to other people doing something that puts me in a position where I'm like, holy fuck, you know, this is nowhere near what I understood reality was. And then there was something in me that held me together and said, you're moving through this. You know, this is what is happening. And I think that was love. I think that was love for myself. Now, I do know a particular moment that I can remember really clearly that was related to ayahuasca, my second of 3 experiences with it. And it did happen on winter solstice. I didn't plan that, but it did. So the Aya that I took in, we'll say 2007, winter solstice, maybe it was 2006, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute, wrong year entirely. Let's try more like 2016. Anyway, it was the most pleasant thing. It was a really, really happy Aya trip. I mean, did I purge? Yeah, I think. I'm pretty sure I did. But there was this way that I held myself on my blanket in the grass, and the stars were right there. Not all the way out there. They were right there. And there was that completely encompassing sort of self-love that was part of the bigger love. And I'm not good at talking about this. You'll have to find somebody else to express it poetically. But this oneness, and that I was part of it, and this way that I held my body, like the fetal position holding of my body, and I just kind of knew it. I had that kind of, some kind of non-abiding self-love. So these are all memories I've had since that question was posed yesterday. My mind yesterday, one of the first things that it came back with when this question was posed to me was, well, did your parents love yourself? Or love themselves? And I suppose that came to mind because I know that definitely my mother does not love herself. And she didn't role model that, of course, and I wouldn't say that what I got to thinking about later with that is that she has a defined ego, my mother, and yet she doesn't love herself, and it's even awkward to talk about, like, love you, Mom. There's something that gets in the way of that happening easily there. And I understand, well, I think I understand now that that's not something that I have any power over. I can't help my mom love herself. And it's true that when I started realizing, you know, in my 20s that I didn't love myself, I had blame for my parents around that. I mean, what kind of parent sends their child off into the world without any sense of self-worth or self-love? Well, now I know it's one that doesn't have that for herself. And I asked this of the other 6'2" manifestor, and she said, oh yeah, my parents don't. So it is an interesting combination of things for my mind to consider right now, that a person can have a defined ego and have a wired-in sense of self-worth, but not be able to access it, for one thing, for example, through an unconscious definition. Or even just not have any way of observing that she does love herself. And this is the question that I have for maybe unconscious defined egos that are asking this question. Are you sure you don't? Are you sure that you don't act as if you do? I mean, you know, do you take care of your body? Because I guess this is my mind, but it seems that body care is a form of self-love. Now, maybe that's just how my self-love comes through. Maybe there's this thing with my body, but my body's been through so much. I mean, It's been so broken, and somehow it gets put back together, and that is fed by some kind of love that I don't even get to choose about myself. A final thought from my mind about all of this is that I know that I used to associate my worth with my accomplishments. You know, I had MG parents, and they, with a lot of individual circuitry, and so they were empowering, and they got done everything they said they wanted to do. And that turned into a lovely, observable, applaudable advancement on the material plane during my childhood. Oh my goodness, Puppy just made a really big jump. Oh my goodness, you're okay. You just jumped off of something really high. Hey, say hi to everyone. Speaking of self-love, oh, do you even know? So, but the last sort of advicey sort of thing I thought about this topic was that I think that my time in yin yoga has been a big part of finding self-love, because in yin yoga you go into this pose, you know, on the floor, you're passive, on the ground for 5 minutes at a time, and that seems like nothing now, but 10 years ago, being still for 5 minutes on the floor didn't make any sense to my mind. But I did it, and I think that time alone with my body it gave me time to maybe notice myself in the not doing, and there was a kind of a body joy or something that I think that it feeds self-love. You're alone with yourself in that situation, and well, maybe not if you're in a studio. YouTube videos for yin yoga are great because you can be alone with yourself. So, and the final thing I'll note is that there is a transit happening right now that maybe makes it easier for me to talk about this. I have gate 20, conscious. I have Jupiter, and the sun is in gate 10 right now. And that 10-20 channel, it does have a expression of self that, well, maybe I'm hearing it now, maybe you're hearing it now, but I've heard it in other people for sure, and I've heard it in transits as well. So, all of that said, if I were to try to make advice out of this, recognize that maybe you didn't grow up with any role models who loved themselves, and it's okay that self-love could be a foreign concept if you didn't grow up with it in your culture or your family. That's my situation. And especially if you've come to associate your worth with your accomplishments and things that you do, that's something that needs to be let go of as it relates to self-love. And even practicing not doing anything can be part of that. And ayahuasca or DMT or other exogenous plant sources of the DMT that's naturally in our bodies, that everyone reports gives that sense of oneness. There's nothing wrong with checking that out. There's a lot of ways to do it that don't work well, apparently, but I recommend it for people that feel called to take on a plant and be willing to face what comes along with that, the purging, the unpleasant things that can happen. But that oneness, it's there, and that self-love is part of that oneness. And maybe self-love is like some kind of, maybe it's something that overcomes that illusion of separateness that makes it so hard for me to talk about the G Center. Wow. Good morning, everyone. You want to say hi one more time? You want to tell everyone what a perfect puppy you've been? Okay, I'll let you go. I'll let you go too.